they would not be suffering those consequences, and we wouldn't have hundreds of thousands suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome as well as brain injuries. So I would say if you take that and add in $4 trillion, our side wins that argument by a long shot. Of course, if we had our way and we removed these dangers, of course, a president would not be able to assassinate anybody, especially never an American citizen. Then, of course, if we have our way, we would repeal the provision in the National Defense Authorization Act. This whole idea that they've gone all the way back to 1215 to mess around with the progress of liberty and repeal habeas corpus by saying that you don't have any right of due process and the military can arrest us and put in private prisons and never get a trial. There's something very un-American about that, let me tell you. Now, there was, when that bill was being debated in the Senate, there was a provision in there so that actually it looked like it was going to get passed. The provision said that if we as an American citizen were arrested and we were tried and found innocent in a jury trial, they still claimed that they could put us away forever and held indefinitely in detention after finding it. But it didn't get that bad. It's still bad, but there was a senator, I can't think of his name, I think he was from Kentucky, and he was able to stop that. Once it got out on the table, they said, oh, we didn't know that was in there. Of course, that's always possible because they don't have the vaguest idea what they're voting on most of the time. That is a problem, there's a Read the Bills Act over there, and of course I think that's a proper thing to do. You ought to read the bill. But, I have to admit, I haven't read all those bills. I mean, if they're 1,000 pages long, my staff has good instructions. They say they have an easy job. They say all they have to do is show me if it's unconstitutional. So a lot of times they only have to read the first page. And if there was ever a time if I wasn't well informed or I came quickly and thought, well, I maybe haven't thought this through completely, let me tell you, it's always been safe to vote no. I think the important thing that we know in this room and the growing number of Americans are realizing that the worst thing we can do is remain silent. How many times I've been to the campuses, I brought this subject up about military arrests and the problems that we're facing, assassination and torture and all these things. And I said, but how many times have you read it or heard about it on the evening news? I mean, it's almost like there's a silence out there. But early on in the campaign, I would bring up, I'd just sort of say, well, let me tell you a little bit about NDAA. And I would think I had to fully explain it. But as soon as I said NDAA, the people in the audience, they were outraged about it. Which means we're not silent. We know about it, but we have to get around the system, which will not report on it because they're part of the problem. They're part of the military-industrial complex. But Another accusation that is made quite frequently at me and you is that we're not patriotic. Well, we do know the military supports this because they said that's un-American, you're not patriotic. But all our views are supposed to be unpatriotic. They hide behind this and patriotism is. But I have been taught and I have been convinced that patriotism is that quality that permits us in a free society to criticize our own government when they're wrong. This is why I have a soft spot in my heart for whistleblowers. The whistleblower serves a very good function, but quite frequently, what are they accused of? Treason. Why are they doing this? Why are they releasing this information? So, Bradley Manning, you know. Now, he's in the military, and there are probably some, debate on exactly how and what to do, but let me tell you, Bradley Manning didn't kill anybody. Bradley Manning hasn't caused the death of anybody. And what he has exposed, he is equivalent to Daniel Ellsberg, who told us the truth about Vietnam. And when Daniel Ellsberg was under the gun, the government wanted to crack down on the exposure on the New York Times. The New York Times, printed the material that Ellsberg released. And that went to the Supreme Court. And Ellsberg did not go to prison. It was upheld, and New York Times did not suffer either the consequence of this. So we're at this point, but just think right now, I'm afraid that if we took a poll across the country and they say, should we try Assange for treason? But most Americans are going to say, oh yes, he's a bad guy. He's telling us all these secrets. But guess what? He's an Australian citizen. And you read about it all the time. That's try him for treason and bring him to the United States. So we have so much power and clout, even Sweden is submitting to saying, well, if he gets here, we'll drum up some false charges and we'll send him over to the United States so he can have a fair trial. But those are the kind of things, those are the problems that we need to worry about, that we need to be concerned about, but they're also the kind of things that we can reverse, and that should be our goal, to change this, to know what a free society is all about, to know where we are and what we need to do. We don't have to invent it. We've had a good taste of it. We don't have to go back to a static period in the 19th century because there were a lot of problems. Even the gold standard can be improved upon. So we want to advance the cause. I think the cause of individual liberty actually started in 1215. It got a tremendous boost with our revolution and our Constitution. But we don't want to say we're going back. The people who want tyranny, want big government, that's what is ancient, and that is what we should worry about. They're the ones who want to go back to the Dark Ages. So how do we look at today, 2012? Do we look at it like 1913? Are we starting all over again and bringing in a new system? Is it 1917 with the Sovietization and the communization of the world? Is it the 1930s where we had so much fascism and Keynesianism and all the mess we have, and then the 50s and the advancement, or now are we going to have to live with the neocons? Or are we going to say we're living in a new era? We're going to start something different, completely different than all that.